Sometimes people in the tax world go, nope, because all they're doing is going, you're doing that. Here's this one way of doing it. I can't think beyond that.
This is Mitch, and welcome to the Real Estate Investor Summit podcast. I have Garrett Gunderson on the line. Love that name, Garrett Gunderson. Sounds like I've been a professional athlete or something. You know, like
I didn't have anything to do with it. Inheritance, 100%. Didn't inherit money, but I got the name. You know.
Well, this guy was not born with a silver spoon in his mouth, but he's been labeled as a financial genius by many. He's got a company that specializes in helping you in up your cash flow, keep your cash flow. It helps you by saving you taxes, helps you to learn where to restructure loans, where to find hidden fees and eliminate them, where to eliminate duplicate costs. It's just about getting your business in financial order and then helping you grow it. Garrett, tell us a little bit about your background. Who are you and how'd you get here?
I started my first business at 15. Detailing cars, so nothing spectacular. Named it Garrett Gunderson's Car Care, so it wasn't the most brilliant of names, but I won 3 entrepreneurial competitions with that. Young Entrepreneur of the Year for the SBA, Governor's Entrepreneur for the state of Utah, and the Rural Young Entrepreneur because I came from a small coal mining town where my dad, grandfathers, and great-grandfathers were all coal miners. So I've never stepped a foot in a mine, thank God, and chose a little bit of a different route, but by detailing cars and winning that award, it came with $5,000, which I thought was a ton of money at that time. And unlike most teenagers, I didn't want to blow the money. I wanted to invest it so I can get the hell out of East Carbon, Utah. And that journey became interesting. Like the more people I asked questions about where to invest, the more confusing it became, the more misinformation that came about it. And what I learned pretty quickly is some people are really good at making money, but they're not very good at investing or keeping that money. And so, fortunately...
It's a double-edged sword, isn't it? Making money is only half the equation. Collecting it and keeping it is like the other parts to it. You know, it may only be... Making the money may only be 1/3, because sometimes you have to collect it, and then you have to hold on to it. And
government wants more than their fair share, and institutions have their rules that they're trying to convince people of to separate from their money and take unnecessary risk. And then, I just asked people like the president of the credit union, because I detailed the cars there. He wanted me to put it in a CD. We know the rule is 72. I figured I would be way too old by the time that money doubled. I talked to my uncle, who was the wealthiest dude I knew, and my aunt said that he made a lot of money in his job and pissed it away in the stock market. So... and my mom wouldn't even sign off as a custodian because she's this Italian that puts money into coffee cans in the cellar. So that's how I got my beginning, is asking these questions. I got offered an internship in June of 98 with a financial firm, which sounds cool, but the reality was they taught me how to sell and build relationships, not much about finance in the financial world. So the first 2 years I was like financial Einstein in my little community because everybody was making money, but hell, anyone was making money in the stock market those 2 years. It was in the year 2000 where my real financial education began, because the market started to go down. Family reunions became awkward because they were all clients and they didn't know what was going on with their money. And hell, I didn't have a good answer other than the stupid things like the market's on sale or you're in it for the long haul. So I took a 2-year, 2-month commitment of flying somewhere every single month, interviewing the best financial minds, going to the best financial events, and figuring out what I could about how the financial game really worked. And that was the beginning of that Rockefeller philosophy that I want to translate and transfer to the rest of the world. It's kind of been this, closely held secret within family offices and with the ultra affluent.
Well, that's a great commitment. You let me reiterate that. You took a 2.5-year commitment to fly somewhere once a month to further your education.
Yeah, I was in college at the time and not married, so I spent more money than most brain surgeons in that 2 years and 2 months. But I learned so much more than I learned in college by far. So I actually wouldn't go to class for a week at a time sometimes because I'm traveling somewhere, whether that was anywhere as simple as Scottsdale, Arizona, or Manhattan. I'm 19 years old, never driving in Manhattan, trying to navigate my way around. But it's amazing what I had this advantage. Being young, a lot of people that would never talk to someone, they're willing to talk to you when you're young because it's almost like a pay it forward, or I can't believe this person's at this age doing this kind of stuff. And plus, I opened with the story of, hey, the market's been going down. I don't want to look my family and clients in the eye and tell them, yeah, it'll bounce back, double down. And even I had this really cool opportunity. I was still in college and a business senator, and we got this new professor. His name was Steve Harrod. He managed $5 billion in municipal bond funds and decided to retire and become a professor as a kind of a pay it forward for the next 20 years of his life. And I started playing racquetball with him, taking him out to have yogurt. And he helped me really understand so much that I had no clue about when it came to money and finance. And we're still friends. And he actually became a client a few years later and still is.
Wow. I know how important that continuing education is, and it's so great when you find the right mentor. So what can you do for people listening? They're out there, they're making some money. They're wearing a lot of hats, and so a lot of things get overlooked. What can you do to help these folks?
One thing that a lot of people overlook, and what we've done research on, and we're actually doing a big study right now, is what percentage of business owners and investors overpay on their taxes. And in the studies we've done, which have been everything from me talking to people one-on-one on the phone, like I talked to 117 people about it, 93+% overpay on taxes. And so here's the 3 things to do and the 2 things to avoid. This will be the framework that I think will save some people money. Number 1, the first and simple thing is you've got to know who the players on the team are, how to find those players, how to communicate with them, and every 3 years get a second opinion, because you can go back and amend your returns if you miss any tax deductions over the previous 3 years. Like right now, I learned about Section 199, which was every time you do like research and development domestically or domestic production, whether that's to do with software or the books I've written, I've been able to go back and amend right now and get 6 figures back because of that specific provision. When my business partners died in a plane crash in 2006, I didn't meet with my accounting team. I missed some of the deductions and structures. I was able to go back and amend and get $54,000 back, and we've done that for a lot of clients. So you always want to get a different set of eyes. Now, the 4 people you might want to have on your tax team. The first one is whether, depending on your size, it's at least a bookkeeper, might be a controller, or maybe even a CFO, depending on your size, because you've got to have the data. The second person is a tax strategist, typically a CPA, and not all CPAs are tax strategists. Some are tax preparers or tax filers. You want someone that's actually looking at what is it that you can write off and create deductions, because that's the second bucket, is the deductions you take. And the third part of the framework is reclassifying income, which comes from the third member of your team, which is anything from a tax attorney or corporate attorney, which can allow you to turn taxable income into tax-free income, ordinary income into capital gains, which is a massive savings, or at least active income into passive income for tax purposes. And then the fourth part of that team, if you're in commercial real estate whatsoever, would be potentially an engineer that can actually bring in cost segregation studies. And once you've got this team built, this is the key. You meet with them once a quarter. Sometimes it might be 10 or 20 minutes. And it's your job to be a business owner, an entrepreneur, and just ask them questions, whether, no matter how far outside the box they are, it's their job to tell you whether it's legal and ethical and whether it can be implemented. But like when I went to Italy last year, I said, hey, can I write this off? And their answer was no. And I said, well, let's look at it further. 1, what if I do an annual corporate compliance meeting while I'm there? Well, you can write that part off. What if I go film where my great-grandfather's from, and I add it into the origin story that we're building right now for our website? Okay, that's an addition. What if I did a 1-day mastermind of the 2 days or 2 months I'm out there? And what if I work on some of the videos and some of the writing? So by the end of that conversation, 50% of that was a write-off where it began as a no. And so I asked questions like, what's the coolest tax strategy you've ever done for a client? Would it apply to me? What's the newest thing that you've heard of? And how could that apply to our business? Or what things can I start doing? And so of the first part of building that team and going back, we want the accountant and tax strategist to look at how you can take tax deductions, which simply we ask, how does this expense relate to my business? And number 2, make sure to document it. So anything from, a couple examples there of an expense turning into a tax deduction. In the new tax law, you can pay your kids $12,000 a year if they're under 18. That's tax deductible to you and your business. It's tax-free income to them, but you're the one controlling the account. Or the Augusta rule. I mean, here I'm at my home office today. I've hosted events here for clients, for vendors, And even for employees, I can rent this out to my business. That's a tax deduction for renting the space, but I don't have to claim that as personal income as long as it's 14 days or less. Those are just two of 200 different things that a lot of people miss on turning an expense into a tax deduction. So number one, build the team and how you communicate with them. Number two, turn expenses into deductions by documentation and asking how it relates to the business. And number three is reclassification of income, which I can give some examples, but I figure you might have a few things to say about what I've already talked about.
Well, so I was talking to my partner today, and we have this chance to sell a big swath of our notes, which is sizable. But we're trying to figure out if there's a way to tax-free exchange that note sale. Right on the surface, everyone's going to tell me no, but I'm still looking for that answer, like asking the impossible, like just to see if someone can figure it out or if there's a way. I'm selling all, I sold all these houses with owner financing and collected a down payment. I've been collecting payments for them for over a year. And so now I'm contemplating selling the notes. What's killing my decision to sell the notes is the tax ramifications. And so the question is there any way that I can tax-free exchange or roll over that sale into something else and not have to pay or postpone the tax? So
could these notes be considered part of it? Are they inside of an LLC or inside of a C corp? Because could you potentially sell as shares in a business instead of as particularly the notes, and therefore consider things like a caps trust, if you're familiar with those, or the caps trust, CAPS. It allows you to start create like up to a 20-year time frame where you're only paying tax a year at a time and allowing it to grow into the next venture. So this is where I would bring the tax team in. That's the exact type of question I want someone to ask. And then we sit here and brainstorm, because I'm not a CPA or a tax attorney. I'm a business owner that isn't bridled by the confines of that system. And I bring people that can tell me yes or no, or if we did it this way. So
let me ask you this.
What's that?
You've got me thinking, can I roll over, could I postpone the tax on the sale of an LLC?
Yes, through a caps trust, you definitely can.
By golly, you may already have answered the question. So, see, let me tell you a secret. So, you said when you were young, people wanted to go and pay it forward, and you could talk to people that would never talk to you if you were older. This is what I figured out. I'm not young anymore, so I have to have
interview them.
I interview them. If I ask to rake their brain over lunch, they say hell no and kick me out of the office. If I come in and say I'd like to interview you on my show, they say yes, and the questions are all the same. So
because you can easily appeal to the vanity of an author or the willingness that they want to get their message out there. So we are easy targets for sure. I mean, all you got to do is compliment one of my books and I'm all ears all of a sudden, Okay,
so when this is over, you've got to not hang up. Well, it's not like I don't have your personal information from somewhere, right, but I want to get your cell phone number and I want to explore this myself, and maybe I'll be your next client, because I have $5 million worth of notes on the table.
Yeah, that's a substantial difference in tax. We just finished a caps trust for one of our clients, saved him $1.3 million. That was just 3 weeks ago from the time we're recording this. So that's actually, I'm just constantly looking for these types of things. And I love when people, I like having these conversations. So someone gives me a challenge and I look at it as what can we do to figure this out? Sometimes people in the tax world go, nope, because all they're doing is going, you're doing that. Here's this one way of doing it. I can't think beyond that. Yeah,
I see it all the time, and I know that it's not true, and I love your theory. Just keep asking people once a quarter, is it possible? What if? What do you know about this?
How about this way?
I love what you said. What's the latest, greatest deduction that you've discovered? Or what's the newest law that's helping people the most? Can I plug into that? I love that. I mean, because, man, if you make a pile of money, everybody wants a piece of it. And typically, there's always a way to postpone the tax.
Yeah.
It's not about not paying tax or being evasive, because that would be against the law. It's how do you use the tax code to the benefit of your business, right?
Yeah, the first couple hundred pages of the tax code tell us why we have to pay taxes. The next several thousand are how we navigate that system in a tax-free way if you're a business owner. So you own real estate. Like real estate, when people can classify themselves as a real estate professional for tax purposes, that's one of the coolest loopholes or advantages because there's no limit to depreciation. There's all these things that open up. I mean, I'll just, like, here's an example of me being on one of those quarterly meetings. So we did one of these in person, and my tax attorney shows up, and he's like, I just got a brand new building. So we're talking about cost segregation for it. And he's like, man, there's a lot of white space on these walls. Have you thought about putting some pictures up? I mean, it just opened up. I was like, well, yeah, I just, I can't make it. It's not financially a smart idea to do it right now because and he's like, what if it were? And we start talking. He's like, I actually got a hold of this art dealer that he connected me to. I was able to buy 350 prints of artwork, and I signed an agreement to never sell them on the open market. So the two artists sold them to me at a massive discount because they unloaded so much at once and I would never flood the market with it. After owning it for 3 years, I no longer had to claim the book value of what I had paid for it. I could claim the appraised value and donate it to museums. So for every dollar I've spent on that artwork, I got back $2 from the IRS in tax credits. That's examples of thinking differently, and it's completely within the law because it's just the charitable donation. And because I held it for 3 years, it got to become the appraised value. I call that tax arbitrage. I mean, in real estate...
You're starting to make me pant now, Garrett. I'm starting to pant.
Okay, we're going to share another one because this one I'm excited about, but I haven't done anything with it yet, but I feel like you and I might be able to do something with this. I don't know how familiar you are with historical easements. Do you know much about historical easements?
I do know a little bit about them.
First of all, the craziest thing about a historical easement is you go to the Forest Service to get the approval for it. I just find that to be fascinating and insane. But I'm in a historical building. It's a 7-story building, and it's really a beautiful building where they've kind of refurbished the inside so you kind of have that old and new collide. Well, if you do a historical easement on a building like that, you forfeit the right to ever tear it down or redevelop it. So we can't turn the 7 stories into 70 stories in the future. But by donating the historical properties or easement, there's a tax deduction, yet the building can still be rented out, it can still be utilized. It's just that it's never going to be redesigned on the exterior and has to meet certain criteria. I mean, I know a lot of people know about conservation easements where you forfeit your development rights for a tax deduction. And, sometimes that's a good idea, sometimes that's not. But I love that there's so many tax advantages out there if people are just in the know. And so just this framework of having the right team, turning deduction or expenses into deductions, and then third, reclassifying income. Reclassification of income is the holy grail of tax savings. So choosing the right corporate structures is a big part of that. Knowing about the right exit strategies, like if you have a big enough business, ESOPs can allow you to sell your business internally tax-free and have the bank finance it. Or charitable remainder trusts allow you to sell real estate, but donate it to a charity first, get a tax deduction upon the donation, and then sell it with zero tax on that sale, and you're the first beneficiary of the trust, so you can actually take between a 5 and 50% income off of that after it's sold, depending on the rate of return and the longevity or your life expectancy. So I just love that there's so many things that can be done out there that actually can just give the government less, give you more, and allow you to direct where the money goes, whether that's to charities or other institutions that you have a fondness for. So, the reclassification of income for me is I'm looking at an ESOP for my business. I set up something called a captive insurance agency, which is the only thing I've personally done that has increased my audit risk, other than probably talk about this constantly in public. But I have no problem because I look at an audit for me as market research. We've been doing this for a long time, and we've only had 2 people owe money in an audit, and that's pretty insane considering the hundreds and hundreds and thousands of people we've worked with. But this captive insurance agency allows me to put $308,000 into a C corporation. I have to hold it there for a minimum of a year, but I can invest it like any other insurance company. And if I have any insurance claims, because I have 10 main things I'm insuring, I pay it out of pocket, or I pay it out of that captive insurance. But if I don't have the claim, which is likely, I get to take that out as capital gain. So I turned an ordinary income of 37.5% into a lower tax of capital gain, all while being able to put pre-tax money towards taking care of my insurance, which most businesses are using post-tax dollars for that. They're just having to pay for it out of their pocket. And it's not necessarily something that they can tax deduct if they're an LLC or an S Corp. So anyway, I feel like I'm getting into the weeds here because you got me all excited and I'm now taking no responsibility and blaming you completely. But those are some examples of constipation.
Where the hell do you live? I'm coming to your house. What's going on? Are you in Utah?
I am in Utah, so don't hold that against me.
Oh, that's a beautiful place. It's 108 here the last 7 days in a row. Maybe, but do you ever come to San Antonio?
I'm in Austin 3 more times this year. I've been to San Antonio probably 3 times in my life, but I know that they call it Austin-tonio now because they're so close together as they continue to grow.
Well, actually, Austin is it's the California of Texas. It's the only place like it in the whole state. So they've Californicated that place pretty good.
Totally. Yeah, I read a book called The Fate of the States, and it costs twice as much to get a U-Haul from California to Austin than Austin to California because so many people were leaving California.
They're all leaving the U-Hauls in Austin, right? Because they're dropping off there.
Who wants to pay the California taxes,
Yeah, well, no one, but I don't even know. I don't know how people do it there. I just really don't. So this has been a great conversation. I want to talk to people about how to get a copy of your book. It's called What Would Rockefeller Do? And we're going to get you a free copy of this. All you have to do is go to reinvestorsummit.com/WWRD, which stands for What Would Rockefeller Do? Which was, we both kind of came to that conclusion at the same time. I want to tell you that I did have a re-audit of my tax returns, and I got back $37,000. Just so I know firsthand what you're saying. Having I think that's a beautiful plan. Have a second set of eyes look at your books every 3. What'd you say? 3 years or 4 years?
Every 3 years. Second opinion. This will be my second time since '98, and I'm in this game that I'm getting money back. Second time. You just
become aware of things that you weren't aware of, or you find a person that knows. That second set of eyes has a second set of neat hints and tips and tricks and knows different code and case code. And
exactly.
I think it's a brilliant idea. So the idea here is just to get your basic finances in order. I think that's the hardest thing and the biggest mistake that a lot of young entrepreneurs make. And if we would start out from the beginning, and I include myself in this because I've made that mistake from the very beginning, it was not having a good set of books and a good accountant to keep me posted every month, if not at least every quarter, of where I stood and get a good set of books, because just being financially in order would have allowed me to get some very reasonable institutional money that I couldn't get my hands on because I couldn't check the boxes,
Right.
Right. But then beyond that, being in order gives you a chance to have a second set of eyes look you over. I mean, otherwise you're just paying, hoping you don't get audited. Usually is like, you're just paying so that what you think you should pay, and hoping that, you don't get audited because I know a lot of people like this. They're just out of order.
Right.
And it's probably costing them a fortune. But the problem, they look at bookkeeping and paying a consultant like yourself as an expense when it's really a savings.
Well,
if you're the right guy.
Yeah, I mean, what if it cost you 4 times more to hire us than your current accountant? And then we find, like I did for this guy Mike, $102,000 in amendments and $20,000 a year moving forward. Who cares if it costs you $5,000? You're making so much more money, and I think that's one area. Like, look, a lot of times what we do is we just do the analysis out the gate, and then they can choose whether to work with us or not after that. So it's not like it's just time on their part.
Okay, so I want you guys to go to reinvestorsummit.com/WWRD. Get a copy of the book. What would the Rockefellers do? Is that what it is?
Yeah. Hey, man, all that's good because look, it's okay if you leave an S off here there because my last book was called Killing Sacred Cows before that. And I had people say Killing Scared Crows. And I'm like, okay, that's a totally different book, man. That's a totally different book. I'm not killing scared crows. That just sounds mean.
Yeah. So, but when you go there to reinvestorsummit.com/WWRD, then there's going to be a place to get in contact with Garrett. If you want an analysis or want to learn more about what his company can do for you, all that stuff will be there. I just want to make it simple. Go there, get your free copy of the book, reinvestorsummit.com/WWRD, which stands for What Would Rockefellers Do? What would Rockefeller do? I got a "the" in there for somewhere. What would Rockefeller do? And get on with the business of keeping your money in your own pocket, please.
Hey, that was fun. Thanks.
So what would you have to say to any of the new entrepreneurs out there, maybe before we wrap it up?
Well, look, before you try to take on a lot of risk and scrimp and save and sacrifice, if you get your financial house in order, you'll keep 10% or more of every dollar you make. That's bottom line cash that ends up in your pocket. We're talking about the fundamentals. It's not about working harder. It's not taking on more risk. So just get that dialed in. What Would the Rockefellers Do is a great first step of just building that infrastructure that sets you up properly for the future.
All right. Well, this is Mitch Stephen. I want to thank everybody for stopping by to get you some Garrett Gunderson. Make sure you get your free book, What Would the Rockefellers Do? And I hope that you're meeting all your goals. I hope that you're doing fine this year. It's a hot market. It's as tough as it's ever been out there as far as finding and selling houses, as far as I'm concerned. I still manage to buy about 100 houses a year, but I've really had to put on my ninja outfit and get down and dirty about how to find these houses, because I find that you can't just do what everyone else does and stay on top. You gotta leave the beaten path. If you happen to think I'm the right person for you to coach you in buying and selling houses and making money in investment real estate, please let's get together and have a conversation just to see if we're a right fit for each other. Just like if you think you need some financial help, you get with Garrett Gunderson. There's never any pressure about this stuff. We just want to make sure that it's a good fit and that we're both going to win in this situation, because who wants to get in a lopsided a relationship when it has to do with people's money, because that just turns out bad. So if you're interested in maybe talking about coaching, go to 1-800-551-7807. Have a conversation there about coaching and see if maybe you and I personally have to have a conversation. Again, go to reinvestorsummit.com/WWRD and get in contact with Garrett Gunderson. This is Mitch Stephen with the Real Estate Investor Summit podcast, and we're out of here.